Welcome, everybody. We are so happy to be here for HIAS Pennsylvania's annual meeting 2021. As you can imagine, things are pretty hectic. Dealing with the twin crises in Afghanistan and Haiti, it was a reminder to me, as if I could ever forget, that HIAS Pennsylvania sits at the crossroads of every international disaster that occurs. So I have joked with the board that they should change my title from executive director to crisis leader, but so far I only got lukewarm laughs. So for now, I'm still the executive director of HIAS Pennsylvania, and my name, as you can see in my photo box, is Catherine Miller Wilson. So this is our annual celebration of fabulous volunteers, without whom we could not do this work. We are really, really grateful to have our volunteers, and we're really grateful for all of you, whether you volunteer or don't volunteer, to tune in to hear about the work that they do, because it's so critically important. We really could not do this work alone, and it deserves its spotlight. So I'm going to be the MC for the day. And first, I want to orient you to the event. Our program listing our schedule for today, our honorees and our volunteers with the most hours from the year can be found in the chat. One of the things that we struggle with every year is who to honor. There are so many fabulous volunteers. It's just kind of overwhelming. So the ones that we're spotlighting today really have gone above and beyond, but don't mistake that there aren't many others who also have gone above and beyond. So we're very excited to be together and to honor them. So now I want to take a moment to get a look around the room and get a sense of everyone who is here. And by the way, there are now 105. So we grew by 40 in the last 3 minutes. That's pretty impressive. Rebecca is going to release a poll that is asking everyone to answer one question. What is your relationship to HIAS Pennsylvania? Are you a volunteer, a board member who's also a volunteer, but we call them board members, staff members, or supporters, clients, or new to HIAS PA and interested in learning more? So please take a moment and just press that and then hit submit. We're going to release the results later on in the program, just a little something to get the crowd warmed up. So I want to thank everyone who stepped up and changed what they normally do during the pandemic. So many of you delivered groceries and other essentials, donated to our Immigrant Relief Fund, and more. We thank you. This year is a special year for HIAS Pennsylvania because it's a time of board president transitions. I want to start the meeting off, therefore, by thanking our super volunteer, immediate past board president, Carol Gantman. Carol's been our president for the last 2 years, but between the pandemic, moving our offices, and the current Afghan and Haiti crisis, it likely feels to her as if she's been president for more than a decade. Throughout all of these incredibly challenging circumstances, Carol's been a rock that we can always depend on, for chocolates when we're feeling blue, for psychological intervention when we're carrying too much, for cheerleading when we need it, and for endless quiet, calm, and supportive talks and texts in the midst of what has seemed like an almost constant tempest. I know that I myself could not have gotten through these past 2 years without her, and suspect that there are many other staff members and board members who feel the same. So with that, I do want to present Carol virtually with this fabulous gift. For those of you who don't know, Carol and I are also neighbors, besides being friends and colleagues. So I'm going to drop this off, probably not tonight because I have a late night meeting, but sometime tomorrow I'll coordinate with Carol for when it's convenient. But this is our annual thank you for everything clock. It has a picture of the world, which is appropriate for HIAS PA, and it says, with grateful thanks for your service, Carol Gantman, Board President, 2019-2021, and it has the HIAS PA logo. So thank you so much, Carol.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for the honors. And I want to say what I did with the incredible support and dedication of my fellow board members who are also volunteers and deserve a whole lot of credit and recognition for what they've done, stepping up and participating at much higher levels than usual. So I do appreciate that. And as always, in admiration and awe of the incredible work of the staff who have been nimble and pivoted and danced their way through so many challenges in the last 2 years. It's been a pleasure and a privilege to do this.
Thank you so much. Now, all of that said, and truly there aren't enough accolades for all that Carol has given, it gives me tremendous pleasure to introduce all of you to our new board president, Rebecca Katz. Rebecca, true to HIAS PA introductions, takes the mantle of presidency at a moment when the world is literally upside down. The pandemic, mistakenly thought by all of us to be almost over, seems never to end. And now on top of that, Rebecca's first act as president has been to spend almost every waking minute since October 1 working with me and the board to resolve some of the enormous challenges involved in responding to the Afghan and Haiti crises, which they have brought to bear on the agency. We're so grateful to have her at the helm, sharing her myriad skills, her leadership, and her remarkable energy with us in these challenging times.
Thank you, Kathy. And it's really nice to meet all of you. I see how Carol Gantman has gotten to know many of you over the past few years. And I really do look forward to getting to know you that way as well. And thank you again for all of the support you've been giving recently and ongoing. As Kathy said, I've been on the board for only about 5 years, but my association with HIAS goes back more than 20 years when I used to teach English to some of the Russian Jews in Northeast Philadelphia. So over the last 5 years, as I've attended this event, I think every year we say, it's been an unprecedented year. We just have had that kind of the past 5 years. And Kathy, as you indicated, at this moment, we're dealing with the dual crises in both Afghanistan and Haiti, and the consequent needs of our Afghan and Haitian immigrants. You, our volunteers, our board, and our tenacious staff have really stepped up once again to give them all of the aid and the advocacy that they need. And from that, I say thank you, thank you, thank you. But honestly, this really shouldn't surprise us. After all, you support immigrants of all backgrounds 365 days a year in times of crisis, but also in times of, shall we say, relative normalcy. And so I want to thank and congratulate all of you for jobs well done, not just during these crises where we have this extra effort, but all year round where our clients really need you. So on Sunday, my teenage daughter, Maya, was writing an essay for AP English about grit. I was actually sitting next to her kind of putting these remarks together. So we were doing our homework together. And she was in her essay talking about some of her challenges that she had during the coronavirus lockdown last year when all the kids were stuck in school virtually. And it was really tough on her and her friends, but she was writing about how getting through it made her stronger, especially as we came out of the lockdown and the kids went back to school. So we were talking about the idea of grit, and this idea of grit has been popularized here in Pennsylvania by University of Pennsylvania professor and psychologist, Dr. Angela Duckworth. Grit is this trait that combines not just perseverance, but also passion to achieve long-term goals. And Dr. Duckworth's research would show that it's the overriding factor that provides the stamina to get through challenges and setbacks. She would say the grittiest person can do more than the smartest person. And it got me thinking about the staff, the volunteers, Kathy, other supporters of HIAS Pennsylvania. You're pretty damn gritty. And I don't mean like the Flyers mascot. You have that combination of perseverance and passion. And you're also pretty smart too. But the clients we serve also have grit. I mean, they're upending their lives. They're fleeing from persecution, from war. They're passionate about their hopes for their families in the future, whether they're from Afghanistan or Syria, Myanmar, Ghana, Guatemala, or the 100 plus other countries from which our clients hail. And our donors have grit. I am just really humbled. You, our donors, continue to see the need in our community. And rather than grow complacent and tune out the noise, again and again, you step up to support the community with donations. I mean, it's been incredible to see the amount of financial aid that we've gotten during this period and the last period and the period before that. It just doesn't stop, and that's wonderful. That generosity is humbling and very much appreciated. So what this tells me is that HIAS Pennsylvania has and will continue to emerge from all of these crises stronger and even more devoted to our mission, which is to address the needs of immigrants in our community, to defend their rights, and to advocate for their equitable inclusion in American society. So I want to just take a second. I mean, I know Kathy has talked a bit about Carol. I can't thank her enough for her guidance and mentoring as we've gotten closer to this transition. I think the goal for any leader should be to, as the Boy Scouts say, leave the woodpile higher than you found it. So that's to build on and leave the organization better than when you got there. And Carol certainly did that. And then I also want to take a moment to thank a few special people who've really persevered in their love and support of HIAS Pennsylvania. We have 3 board members, longtime board members, rotating off this year: Alan Iser, Carol Wilder, and Etta Katz. And while their board services ended, they're of course always going to be members of the HIAS Pennsylvania family. And then as a final board related note, we're really pleased to welcome our 2 newest board members, Michelle No and Sarah Jacobson. So I am really looking forward to working with them and the entire team. So with that, my hope is that in the next year, we can all join in thanks together. This virtual stuff's great, super convenient. I live in the suburbs, so getting down to the city is not easy. But HIAS has beautiful new offices on 6th and Chestnut. And my hope is that we can all at some point gather there this year and get to know each other and celebrate the great successes that the organization has had. But today, you'll hear a lot about what we've achieved, even virtually. So now I'm going to turn things over to our fabulous community engagement specialist, Annika. You've already heard a little bit about Annika. She joined us in February, and she's the person who trains and supports all of our volunteers. Her work is behind the scenes, but it's really tireless, just as tireless as our frontline staff. She creates volunteer positions. She has to recruit volunteers. She trains the volunteers. She matches them with staff. She matches them with clients. And then she's the one who troubleshoots all the problems that might come up and solves them to ensure that everyone within the HIAS Pennsylvania Circle of Care, staff, volunteer, and clients are really functioning at their highest levels. So Annika, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much for the lovely introduction, Rebecca. Hello, everybody. It's really nice to see a lot of faces for whom maybe we've only talked on the phone this year, emailed, and we're finally face-to-face, even if it's just in a virtual space. It's been a real honor to join HIAS this year, even more of an honor to get to know the robust and caring community of HIAS PA volunteers. I've just been continued to be inspired by the wide variety of skills and knowledge our volunteer community infuses into our work and the immense care that they offer in welcoming our immigrant and refugee clients. This community support carries on HIAS's over 100-year-long legacy of volunteer-rooted and supported work. HIAS PA wouldn't have the legacy and impact it does without our volunteers, quite truly. It goes without saying, as many people before me this afternoon have said, that the last year has presented numerous challenges for all of us that have dramatically altered the kind of support HIAS PA needed from its volunteers. And it's been my privilege to introduce to you 2 of our honorees today, Mindy Silver and Rebecca Benaroch, who you will meet in an upcoming video in just a short moment. They're both longtime volunteers of HIAS PA who pre-pandemic already went above and beyond as Philly neighbors and even assisted in developing some of our volunteer training materials. They both are wonderful examples of volunteers who have met the call for our evolving needs during the pandemic. So without further ado, join me in honoring Mindy and Rebecca. Let's watch together and learn a little bit more about their amazing work at HIAS PA.
Mindy and Rebecca and others are just people who really make an impact in everyone's lives that they touch.
I think I can speak to both of them being incredibly responsive and supportive in the last year in serving in roles that weren't necessarily as glamorous as our regular volunteering, but they were able and willing to step up in ways that we just truly needed their support during the pandemic.
So I was spending a lot of time at home, and from time to time I would get these notices from HIAS asking for volunteers to do COVID safe driving. So I did a lot of driving. I would go to pick up baby bundles. from the local Abington hospital where the baby bundle office was, and I would deliver these bundles to places in the Northeast. Or there was an amazing story where they had me going to Kennett Square to deliver a baby bundle to this woman. It ended up that she lived on a mushroom farm, one of the mushroom farms there, and I delivered them to this baby bundle to her. And just to see her eyes light up when she received this bag of amazing goods that, you know, was coordinated through HIAS was just this amazing thing.
Rebecca, wanted to keep supporting HIAS-PA and our clients. So she was a person who did several grocery shops for us. She actually committed to sticking with one family for several months and shopping for them every other week, which was so immensely helpful.
I think I was during COVID buying groceries for someone, which to me is I feel very strongly, my money, not just my actions, but money should go to things that I believe in.
She worked with me and with our employment services team to essentially create our job mentor position. I mean, it had existed already, but Rebecca helped to build out the training. She wrote maybe 60 to 80 page handbook in collaboration with our employment services team and me. Without her, that position wouldn't even be what it is.
I was interested in seeing how I could contribute skill sets that I have from my own work and life in ways that were useful, and I ended up collaborating on a resource for job seekers. And it's something I really feel passionately about, that folks are prepared for job interviews and feel like they have confidence to know what to expect.
So Rebecca is one of those people who, was always willing to not only to jump in to help, but also to help to make things better. She didn't just offer feedback for the sake of it. She was really intentional in helping us to actually develop and improve our programming.
I was a Philly neighbor to a family of 5 and really enjoyed times I spent with them. This was pre-COVID, and we did actually end up sort of tapering off right as COVID started in March of 2020. But we were working on both employment and English and just sort of visits, and I would say it was in many ways very kind of holistic, like not any one specific thing, but
I got our congregation to adopt a family that was from El Salvador, a mother with 5 children. Our synagogue adopted them, and we supported them monetarily, and I did a lot of support with them. Every week I would go visit them. And
so Mindy Silver has definitely been, I would say, an institution at HIAS-PA long before I joined the agency, in a volunteer role, a supporter role, an ambassador role.
I started with HIAS because of my friends, and I wanted this personal connection with a family that was being helped by HIAS.
There's like a lot of set volunteer positions, but then there's just like miscellaneous ad hoc tasks, and Mindy was one of those people you knew you could rely on.
I'm just so impressed with the passion that all the staff and volunteers have towards HIAS. It's just really, really heartwarming. I mean, I've worked on other committees and in other organizations, and I don't think that there's another organization that's more passionate about the work that they do, whether it be paid or volunteer. It's just a really, really amazing community.
I really just want to say how much I admire the courage and tenacity and just the determination of so many people who take such incredible risks to ensure their families' safety, ensure their families' livelihood and ability to thrive and do better for the next generation and offer better for the next generation.
I'd like to offer my gratitude to everyone's flexibility and willingness to be nimble and adapt to an ever-changing situation. And that goes for our staff, our clients, and our volunteers. It's been a really challenging year and a half, and I think I've seen all different kinds of mutual support emerge from a really difficult time, and watched how we've been able to create new and different relationships because of that. And I'm incredibly grateful for the people who have been persistent in showing up and providing that kind of support, no matter what role they play in the HIAS community.
Thank you so much, Annika, and thank you so much, Mindy and Rebecca. Wave. Now I would like to introduce our Deputy Director and Chief DEI Officer, Jennifer Joseph, who will introduce us to our next honoree.
Thank you, Kathy. Good afternoon, everyone. It's so awesome to see all of your faces. As Kathy just mentioned, my name is Jennifer Joseph, and I am the proud Deputy Director and Chief DEI Officer here at HIAS, Pennsylvania. In this next video that you are about to see, we will be highlighting the incredible work of our next honoree, William Leahy and Littler and Mendelsohn. Over the past 2 years, I have had the pleasure of building the HR department at our agency. And as our agency continues to grow, the HR demand has also grown. But thanks to passionate volunteers like former board member Carol Wilder, I was introduced to Littler, and they have played a vital role in assisting me with meeting the growing demand. Littler has been a tremendous support to me over the past 2 years, and I am elated to present them with this honor. So without further ado, please turn your attention to this next video. Littler has supported me with a lot of labor and personnel related matters within the agency.
We do employment law counseling and advice on anything dealing with employment issues that HIAS VA has. I've had the opportunity to work mostly with William Leahy, who was an absolute pleasure to work with. Will is extremely committed, very knowledgeable, flexible, and patient. I've had to email him at all hours of the night with different fires and emergencies, and he's always been incredibly responsive and helpful. Well, our hope with any client, and pro bono clients are no exception, and HIAS PA certainly is at the top of it. We want to be there. We want to be your trusted advisor, and we want to be somebody who you call on whenever you need something going down the road. I've been working with Littler for about 2 years. I was introduced to them by Carol Wilder, who is the present chair of the HR board committee. And it's just been a pleasure to work with them. We try to support anything our colleagues support within the community. So from that standpoint, we just like to be involved. We support a number of nonprofits and service organizations around the area, and have for a long time. With HIAS Pennsylvania, certainly the cause of seeking to help refugees and help immigrants who are trying to come to this country and trying to get started and start their lives over here. It's something we all believe in personally here. I just want to express my deep gratitude to Littler for making time for HIAS PA and really working in partnership with me to ensure that we support our staff. Thank you to all of you for letting us have the chance to work with you, and for involving us in your work and whatever support we can provide.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, William Leahy, Littler Mendelsohn. We're so grateful to all that you've provided to us. Now we get to have an interactive part of our program. And sorry about my phone. I did put it on Do Not Disturb, but who knew? We have several breakout rooms, all related to the theme, Meet a Volunteer. Breakout room 1 will be with pro bono lawyers Catherine Steinbugler and Pooja Agarwal. Breakout room number 2 will be with Philly neighbor Jennifer Gao, and breakout room 3 will be with adult ESL tutor Leora Tamir and education program intern Casey Kleck. Okay, well, I see Jennifer Gao, so I'm going to call on you, Jen. Jennifer, if you don't mind, share a story, your favorite story about your volunteer experience and what it was like.
Excellent. So I was a Philly neighbor. My wife and I were Philly neighbors to a family of 5. And I think the best experience that we had, we met with them. The commitment for us was to meet with them on a weekly basis. And our experience, I mean, was just phenomenal. It was enriching to us, but I think the most thing that I was most proud of was coming out of that experience after several months and just seeing the progress that the family made. This family needed help with pretty much everything, right? And so we were able to help teach them how to write checks and teach them how to pay their bills and go to the bank with them and help them really establish their bank account and understand how to manage their day-to-day, but also had conversations with them about applying for jobs and searching for careers for actually multiple of the folks in the family. And you were there supporting them from a kind of tactical point, a logistical point. But I think the most enriching thing was like every time you walked into their house, you could see that they appreciated you being there just as a support, and truly just as a neighbor. And it was going to be, yes, we were going to have some tough conversations and we were going to work through some challenges every week, but we were also going to laugh. And I did not speak the language and I would try my best and they would laugh at me and with me, right? And I think the best thing was just knowing that they had somebody to lean on, and somebody to reach out to any hour of the day, beyond just kind of the HIAS team who they knew was there for you. We were there as this extra support group. Some days we would bring our puppy over to their house and we would just play. And some days we would, again, do some of the harder tasks. But again, I think that the biggest thing is for them to know that there is a support system in the Philly area. It can be really overwhelming. All of our systems, all of our processes, even learning how to use the bus when you don't speak English and you don't know what the heck is going on, how to get to HIAS. All the things that I think I took for granted were easy things for me to teach, but were really valuable for them to learn. So the experience, it can be depending on the family, it can be an intense experience, depending on how much need they have, versus a lighter touch experience. So as you're getting matched to your family, have that conversation as well, what you're able to commit to. Luckily, we were able to, I was working from home and had a pretty flexible job. My wife was in the hospitality industry and had different hours. So we were able to be there during the workday or at night as they needed. Happy to answer any questions as well.
Great. Thanks so much, Jennifer. So why don't we put questions in the chat, and I'm going to move now to Catherine Steinbugler and Pooja Agarwal to talk about their experiences as pro bono lawyers.
Sure. Hi, everyone. So my story with HIAS goes back to 2009 when my law firm gave me an opportunity to do a pro bono fellowship. And I ended up moving to Philadelphia and being a legal fellow at HIAS. And I've been that was like a full year of full-time work with HIAS. And I was helping with the crisis in Haiti that year, which was the earthquake in January of 2010, and helping with all the TPS applications and mentoring pro bono attorneys and things like that. And then my relationship has stayed strong with HIAS since then, and I've continued to do pro bono asylum cases along with Catherine Steinbugler, who's helped me. We've worked together on 2 cases. And one is still ongoing that we're waiting for a decision. And then I have another ongoing case with another former colleague when I was working at Penn with a family from Venezuela.
Great. Thank you so much. Catherine?
So, hi. I think that it was very nice of Pooja to say that we worked together on a case. I was very happy to be working with Pooja because she's obviously a very experienced immigration lawyer, and I was a complete novice when we took our first case. Our first client was an elderly Syrian Christian woman from Homs in Syria. And she and her husband were shot in their home by what may have been stray bullets fired by Muslim terrorists. Her husband died, and she decided to make her way to this country. She had a very harrowing journey to Beirut to get her visa, and she came here where her daughter, son, and granddaughter live. And you know, we had to hire a translator because she really spoke absolutely no English at all. We were both at Penn at the time, and Penn's Middle East Center identified a wonderful interpreter who helped us throughout the case, and he really became an integral part of our team. You know, we were putting together the petition. There was no lack of evidence of the desperate country conditions. We used the typical publicly available sources, including Human Rights Watch and Department of State reports. Also, there was a very good congressional committee report on the persecution of Christian minorities in Syria. And then finally, the chaos and violence that was occurring in Syria was frequently in the news, so we were able to use press reports as well. While the petition was pending, our client also became eligible for TPS, and so we were able to secure that for her. We submitted the petition, and we had very able help from HIAS's Philip Weiss with all sorts of questions, mainly when Pooja wasn't around and I needed some guidance. I went to Philip. And we waited several months for an interview, which we thought was a long time at that point, several years ago. So we decided to seek an interview on an expedited basis, citing our client's age and poor health. And that was granted almost by return mail. It was amazing. So when we went to the interview, we found the office, the Newark office, this was the old office, was a bit intimidating in terms of security, and they had to sequester the asylum petitioners in the waiting room separately from what looked like were some detainees who had been picked up. But we found that our asylum officer was extremely sympathetic and understanding. She was very sensitive to the way she asked questions and very tactful, which was really, really helpful in this case because of the trauma our client had been through. This was in pre-COVID times, so we had to bring our own translator who came, and also there was a translator on the line. They were also having parties return to the office a couple of weeks after the interview to pick up the decision. So we traipsed back up there a couple of weeks after the interview, and that was, we got a positive decision, conditional approval. And so that was very, very wonderful outcome. And so that was my first taste of doing an asylum case. And I was like, oh, I love this. I love learning about the person's story, the complete and amazing courage. This woman was 79 years old when she came here. I was just so inspired by her. So we decided to take another case. And this case we took in, I think, 2016. Our second client was a victim of female genital mutilation in Guinea. And not only was she cut, one of her daughters was also cut and died as a result. And another daughter, a couple of months after that had happened, was grabbed and narrowly escaped being cut through the help of a friend of our clients. So after that happened, our client decided to flee to protect her youngest daughter. This female genital mutilation is, as you may know, almost universally practiced in Guinea and very difficult to resist. Our client's mother was in a very tiny minority that opposes the practice, but her father's family adhered to the practice. So our client's mother had persuaded members of the father's family to accept that the girls were not going to be cut, but that the family really did not agree. And one of the paternal aunts actually was involved when our client and her sister were cut when they were young women. After our client's daughter died, she went to the police, and the police advised that this was not a matter for the police, that a women's committee in the village would be responsible for it. And that committee did not take any action. There was basically, they asserted that the daughter had wanted to be cut and had asked to be cut, which was really not credible given the families, our clients and her mother's longstanding opposition to the practice. So when we took the case, we might have benefited from an interpreter in the beginning of the case, but with some effort, we were able to understand our client. This was a good thing because after looking exhaustively at Penn and other academic language centers, we were absolutely unable to find an interpreter who spoke Loma. And our client didn't speak any other language other than a little bit of English and Loma. So we tried at one point to have one of our client's acquaintances act as an interpreter, but she felt she should be an advocate and she had some difficulty sticking to like literal translation. So we went ahead without an interpreter, which turned out to be fine because the case was pending for so long that our client got quite good at making herself understood in English, although she still had a very heavy accent. We had two wonderful doctors, Dr. Sandra Wolf and Dr. Carol Gantman, who I see here today, who saw our client and provided expert statements regarding her physical and mental health. These statements were very compelling in their detail and accuracy. In addition to our primary client, her husband and her two daughters are derivative applicants. So there were a lot of documents as part of the petition. And we had a lot of assistance from the amazing Io Gonzalo in translating them and also providing other guidance to us on the case. We included in the petition data regarding the pervasiveness of the practice of FGM in Guinea. It's upwards in the 90s, 90% prevalence, over 90% in the most recent data that's available. We also included the US government's determination that cutting is a form of torture. So our filing was done in October 2016, and it got stuck for a number of reasons that you all may be quite conversant with. Some of the resources from the New York office were diverted to the Mexican border. There was also a reordering of the processing of cases, and then COVID hit. And so this made it very difficult for our clients. They had a very difficult time understanding why this was all taking so long to get an interview. And quite frankly, Pooja and I were having a lot of difficulty understanding. Our client and her husband very much wanted to work, so we helped them get employment authorizations. And the last time when we were applying for renewal, Jessica was very helpful to us in making us aware of the fact that we could get a waiver of the fee by having our clients join a class in one of the class actions, which was a big deal because, as you know, it's very expensive to apply for renewals. So we advocated for an expedited interview, but we were turned down. And then we decided to ask for to be put on the short call list. And we did that at the beginning of last year. And I would call the office on a regular basis and ask when our case was going to get an interview, and the office would assure me that it was going to get an interview, but they couldn't say when. But finally, last month, Pooja got a call from the office offering an interview slot on September 16th. And they basically said, you have 30 minutes to decide whether or not to take this. And so of course we took it. Jessica was extremely helpful to us in preparing a letter backgrounder for the hearing officer, which we submitted a week before the interview date. And we also asked for a female asylum officer and that our client be permitted to testify privately, given the sensitivity of the subject matter. And the office responded almost immediately that they do typically allow separate testimony and that they would try to assign a female officer, which they did do. And the officer was very sympathetic and tactful. She also seemed extremely overworked. Our appointment was at noon. When we got there, they said it was actually be at 1, and then at 1, our asylum officer came out very apologetically, said she just completed an interview, she hadn't had lunch, could we start a little bit later? So we said, of course. So we started a little before 2 in separate offices, with the testimony being given into an iPad because of COVID protocols. There was actually a little bit of difficulty with language. The asylum officer said that she wasn't that familiar with the accents, and she allowed me to clarify at various points in the testimony. So it was understandably very emotional for our client to tell her story, but we got through it, and we got through the it was basically pro forma questioning of derivative applicants. And the decision on this petition is pending, and we are keeping our fingers crossed.
I was just going to say, Catherine was not familiar with immigration or asylum law prior to doing her cases, so it shouldn't be a bar to volunteering. HIAS provides a lot of guidance, and there's trainings and a lot of materials available, and there's a lot of support, as you can see from this group. We have a lot of community support to get these cases done, and usually the cases HIAS refers to pro bono attorneys are ones that they think have a very high chance of approval, but they require, quite a bit of work, so it's hard for, obviously, for HIAS staff alone to do it, and it's just so meaningful and valuable, and you get to meet and learn so much about the people you're helping and develop this relationship. And I couldn't recommend it more as a way to use your legal education for anyone who is interested. And you can always reach out to me for more information on the experience.
Thank you so much, Pooja and Catherine. That's just really fabulous. And I appreciate your sharing those stories. Because we weren't able to get to breakout rooms, we're running out of time. And so I would ask if our additional volunteers, interns, they were going to talk about ESL tutoring, Leora Tamir and Casey Kleck. If you wouldn't mind sharing a story in the chat so that people can read it at their leisure, we would be most grateful. But thank you again for all of that. And I did want to just respond. Richard Molish had asked in the chat about the asking to the attorneys, does the recent announcement not to deport undocumented persons who arrived prior to November 2021 affect the legal proceedings of those seeking asylum? So it's not a direct effect. Seeking asylum is a legal process. It goes through its thing. The indirect effect is that, of course, when you're seeking asylum, you can still be subject to deportation, depending on how your petition has kind of appeared in the court process. It's a little bit complicated. So we hope that some of the recent announcements will help cut down on deportations that occur while somebody is waiting for legal status. But there is, as you might have noticed, a bit of a disconnect between President Biden's statements and ICE's actions. So we remain concerned, and we're particularly concerned that Title 42 is still in effect, which is keeping people from making legal claims in the first place, and has resulted in the massive and unjustified deportation of Haitians at the border. So that was a short answer to a complicated question. Thank you again, everybody, for sharing your stories and continuing to share them in the chat. So we have to move on. And I'm very pleased to pass the mic on to our very own Sadiq Sadid. Sadiq Sadid is our office manager. He also happens to be a special immigrant visa holder, someone who helped the American military in Afghanistan, who HIAS Pennsylvania helped to resettle in 2019. Many of you may have heard about his story on CNN or read about it in the Washington Post or the Inquirer. As an Afghan who helped the American military, he was threatened by the Taliban as a result. He joins us today to share his story, which I will give you a hint, did not end with his resettlement here. While listening to his story, please feel free to put questions in the chat and we'll try to answer them during the after party for those who can tune in directly after our celebration. Okay, Sadiq, please share.
Thank you so much, Kathy, and thank you all for giving me the opportunity to share my story in this remarkable day. I want to start with the note of presenting my appreciation and thanking all resettlement agencies for putting their tireless efforts in resettling immigrants and welcoming them to their first house in the United States. A special thanks to HIAS Pennsylvania that resettled my family in 2019. And I want to end on a note of hope for those who are facing challenges in their own countries and would like to immigrate to the United States where they can live in peace and stability. As mentioned earlier, I came with my wife and 5 children on a special immigrant visa in 2019. It's obvious that moving to a new country, especially to the United States, where you need to start a life with a scratch, it's not easy. It's difficult. You will face challenges, you will face obstacles, and you need some support. So though we know that there is peace, security, and stability, one will face a lot of challenges such as culture shock, finding houses, enrolling children to school, enrolling healthcare services, finding job opportunities, opening your first bank account, applying for government assistance, and so on and so forth that you can name it. HIAS Pennsylvania helped me to find a house when I had no credit and didn't know about how the credit system worked in the US. The staff members provided me and my family the culture orientation to know about our rights and responsibilities living in the US. Our education team, I really thank them for helping my children not to be only enrolled in a school, but also to provide them the opportunity and pave the ground for them that they can also be enrolled in ESL, English as a second languages, so that they can learn quickly and they can solve their day-to-day problems. The resettlement team also helped me to open my first bank account and to find me my first job in introducing me to some of employers where I didn't have any contact with them moving to the US. The health coordinators helped me and my family with the upcoming appointments and also provided us with the healthcare services. Thanks again for their support, hard work, and tireless efforts in doing so, and I greatly appreciate their A to Z, that I call it A to Z services, that they have not only provided for me, but also to whole immigrants that they are coming to the US. I'm so fortunate and happy being part of such a dedicated team and having the opportunity to pay back to the community by helping other immigrants while they are coming to the US and by welcoming strangers to the US. I have spent 2 years in the US, but even now, as Kathy said, I still need your support. Although I have job, I have been resettled, but as you may have watched my interviews with CNN, Philadelphia Action News, Channel 10, or may have read my articles on Washington Post or Inquirer, we went to Afghanistan for a last visit in July. I came earlier and my wife and children, they were there to enjoy the summer break with my parents and her parents. When Kabul failed, and since I was not there, my brother left his own family and accompanied my family to be safe and to return back to my home. He and his daughter are still in a military camp in Indiana, and I'm in contact with our legal team to get their advice on moving a step forward in any action that I'm taking to get them out of the camp. Finally, I hope that those who wish to come to the United States may find an easy transition to their new home in the US. Thank you so much, and I really appreciate it. Thank you for listening to my story.
Thank you so much, Sadek. You just really give endlessly and are a really good example of why we do the work that we do. So again, we have a few more items of happy business to take care of before the meeting ends. But once we do end, for those that are able and willing to stay, Sadek has graciously offered to remain and answer any questions. So keep his words in mind. And now we're going to move on to one of our favorite traditions at our annual meeting, the awarding of the Judge Harold Berger Book Awards. So Judge Berger is with us. He's part of our board. He's also part of HIAS Inc.'s board. And every year he generously gives us $2,400 to distribute to 3 immigrant students to use for their books. We have to choose from several fabulous immigrant youth and are always bursting with pride to share their accomplishments with all of you. This year's awardees will be introduced by our high school and post-secondary lead instructor, Michelle Ferguson. So Michelle, take it away.
Kathy. Good morning, everyone. My name is Michelle Ferguson. As Kathy said, I am the high school and post-secondary lead instructor at HIAS Pennsylvania. So my primary role is to oversee the high school and young adult mentoring program where students receive college preparation. So I'm pleased to announce that this year's 3 Berger Book Prize awardees for 2021 are Lady Vialta Fuentes, Leila Abdelmalwa, and Khadija Moadel. Each of these students exemplify the grit and perseverance necessary to succeed in a world where the deck is stacked against them as immigrants. Each of our students have worked hard throughout their respective high school and educational careers, diligently working to learn English, navigate complicated educational systems, all while taking care of their families and their communities. They've each taken advantage of mentoring programs, just like ours, participated in volunteer experiences, challenged themselves with rigorous coursework, and sought out opportunities for growth. Ultimately, each of them have paved their own paths for themselves, and they are now starting college. I am so excited for and truly impressed by each of them. Congratulations, girls, and let's hear from them.
That's amazing. Great to see all these young women in STEM and science and technology and medicine. It's great. Lady, Leila, and Khadija, it's really inspiring to hear about all the successes of young people like you, successes that occurred in large part because of all of you, volunteers, donors, and board members. And so, you know, this year, as we do every year, we celebrate everything that you have all done and all that our collaboration has created. Thank you for coming. I know we're running right up against the hour, but as Kathy mentioned, you know, if you would like to stay on and join us for an after party, we'll have another 15 minutes or so with Sadiq to ask him some questions about his recent experience. You can put more questions for him in the chat and I'll moderate those. If you can't stay, I know it's 1 o'clock, you can just hang up. Everybody else can stay on to talk with Sadiq. And again, from everybody at HIAS, we are just so grateful for all of your ongoing support. Thank you for the help and thank you for all the help you'll give us in the future. So we'll give everybody 30 seconds and then I guess we'll turn to Q&A. So Becca, I don't know if you want to spotlight Sadiq, perhaps.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks so much for joining, everyone. We're really grateful. We know this is a weird platform. But as we say, sometimes we say next year in Jerusalem, we're all saying next year in person.
Great. Well, let's see if we had any questions initially for Sadiq in the chat. I have to scroll backwards a little bit. But you know, maybe I could start with one. Sadiq, you know, I was so impressed. You were going through this really traumatic situation because you didn't know the fate of your family that were still in Afghanistan, but you were still out talking to all of the press on behalf of HIAS and doing interviews. Can you maybe talk a little bit about why you chose to do that at a time when you were, I would assume, you know, really distraught and stressed out, but you still made the time to go out and talk to everyone?
Thank you so much for this question. basically, as the first day I started with HIAS, I always remember that they just told me that it's not only about my family, how they do what they do. It's about the community and it's about people, clients that you're dealing with. And by the time my family, they were in Afghanistan, I know that my first interview with CNN, I had to hide my face, and even I was not able to show my face because they were threatened and they were in the basement. But still, I thought that I have to be a voice for them, for those people that they left behind and those people that they still need our support. I was receiving calls from U.S. Embassy colleagues that some of them, they were in Kabul, some of them, they were in Germany, some of them, they were in Dubai, in Doha. So they were calling me and they were saying, oh, but you're working in one of the refugee offices. So since we are calm and quiet now and we are trying to escape the country, at least you can share our ideas, our words to the world, because we know in Afghanistan, we don't have freedom of speech, but you're there to take our word. So I thought that, well, this is the time and I have to make some time for this. And I started my first interview with CNN and they were so supportive. And I was introduced by Ms. Kathy and Jennifer to CNN and to some other colleagues. So through CNN, I also found a way to go to the airport and help those people voluntarily because they didn't know the language. And it was, I know it was a challenge, but I learned a lot of things from those, challenging time.
Thank you for that. We have a couple questions. Why don't we start with Anne's question? She's asking about your brother's family. And also I just would be curious what you're hearing. You mentioned your brother's in one of the military camps. What you're hearing from him about conditions there and how long it's taking to process. And then what about the rest of the family? Will they be able to get out of Afghanistan?
My brother, they used to work with the US mission almost for 17 years plus. And he was working with the military forces and he was as a police liaison for dealing with the police and with the military forces, repairing their vehicles and returning back those vehicles. So that was his main job. After Kabul failed, and since my family was there, he was receiving calls from the Taliban that he had to return back to the office. And they were, because all those polices that they were bringing the vehicles for repairing, they changed to be a Taliban in a few days, and they know him by face, by identity, and even his address. They were calling my brother that he has to return back. They will just do an investigation and everything will be safe. But I know the truth that that was not the truth. So I was in contact with my brother and I just say that he has to move to a different location with my family because they also neighbors and some other people, they know that my family is also there and I'm away from them. And since the situation got worse, I asked my wife, we had the commercial flights, but I asked my wife to leave a little bit earlier because the situation got worse. She attempted 2 times with my children, and the last time she attempted, she was not allowed by Taliban to come to go because there was no someone like a guardian to help. And then that was the time I said to my brother that this is the time you have to help me. So he left his own family and introduced himself as a head of the family to my family to save my family and to come to the US. He came to the US because he was almost for 2 weeks plus in the camp, Germany, and he came on 6 September to Washington. From Washington, he moved to Indiana, and he's still in Indiana. I need to process all his documents, so he's waiting for his assurance and medical report. As soon as that will be done, then I will have the opportunity to bring him and join my family. But his family is still left behind, and we are looking forward to find a way to get his family out of the country as well, but I don't know how long that will take.
Yeah, mostly overland, right? Very difficult. But we are, as you know, helping family members who have families still in Afghanistan to fill out humanitarian parolee applications. We have something like 600 applications that HIAS is working through with pro bono attorneys to try to support people who are still left behind and get them out of the country. Going back to sort of the pre-crisis period, Sadiq, what was the most different cultural challenge when you got here in the US? I mean, you were obviously working with a lot of Americans, but living here is a little bit different. What was the biggest surprise or biggest challenge you faced?
Yeah, for me, obviously, it was not an issue at all because I was working with the US Embassy and before that with the Netherlands Embassy and also working with United Nations. So pretty much I was familiar with the cultures because the US Embassy in Kabul, we had almost like 2,700 employees and it was reflecting people all over the world, like the third country nationals, US direct hires and Afghan colleagues as well. So for my family, especially for my wife, the first time she took off her burqa, it was not any restriction from my end, but it was something like she wanted to have. It was the time when we came to the airport. She has never been to school. She even was not able to read our own language. And I know it was so difficult and it was a culture shock for her, to come to the US because I was in the US in 2014 and 2016 for some training purposes. And I know how it looked like, but for my children, they were not even able to speak a single word. Like my daughter, when I took her to school, she was the first, like the top grade in her school back in Afghanistan. When she came here, she was not able to communicate. And anytime that teachers were asking her question, she was crying. But the ESL gave her an opportunity to learn and practice English. And for my wife, I already shared with Kathy and some other staff members. I don't know how that happened, but it's all about the encouragement of these agencies and, the English classes that she attended. Even now she has an English class. She already got her permission, her permit and her license, which is something like when I came here with 5 children, I thought whether I have to think about my job, who will take care of them going to school. But now, even yesterday, she said that, allow me that I should drive anywhere I want. So I'm free now and I can take care. And it is something like I'm helping you. And that is something I know that if there was such an opportunity in Afghanistan for her, she was much, much better than she is now. But still, although she takes care of the children, she takes care of the house, and she takes care of myself, but she is still striving to learn and get things done. And I really appreciate that as well.
Yeah, well, obviously the language barrier takes time, but that's wonderful. I actually heard your daughter interviewed on one of the television channels. I thought her English was quite good, so she's come along quickly. Let's see if there's any. I don't see any additional questions. Does anyone have any additional questions they want to ask? You could even unmute yourself if you'd like.
Yeah, we have time for one more question, so don't be shy. Sadiq is very generous.
Thank you so much, Kathy.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Yeah, Sadiq, tell us about your kids and their adjustment and the hardest things and the easiest things for them to adjust to the United States.
For my kids, so thank you, David, for your support and everything that you're doing to the community. I really appreciate it. And it's good that I see you here. So, my kids, you have been to the house and you have talked to my kids. They are, anytime that they need any help, they always let you know. And thank you for not only for my family, but thank you for taking care and be one of the volunteers for HIAS PA. So the easiest thing for my children that I noticed, it is to get in touch with those people, those children around them, even they don't know the language. trying to play with them, to get engaged with them, and to learn new things and to share their thoughts and experience. Like when I brought my family, as I mentioned earlier, none of them, they were able to speak English. But today, when we had our interview with CNN and I said, I want to be a translator, and she said, no, I can speak English. Let me say my own words and express my own thoughts. I don't allow you to talk on my behalf. That is something I was shocked, and I was proud of my daughter. I said, well, in 2 years, will she be able to speak and to be interviewed in a different language? So the easiest thing for the children was to learn a different language, that even now they are trying to learn Spanish and Arabic. And the hardest thing is like, to learn more about the city, and to find about the city, about what is going on, because they are almost new to the country. Like going somewhere and digging out, it takes some time. That is a little bit hard.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing your story and for continuing to advocate on behalf of everyone still in Afghanistan and HIAS generally. It does mean a lot, and it really helps. Stories like yours really do help bring to light all the work that we do, whether it's for the Afghan refugees or all the other refugees that we serve. So thank you very much. Kathy, I'll turn it back to you to close out.
Hey, great. Thank you so much, Rebecca and Sadek, and thanks everyone for staying on. It's great. One of the down or upsides depending on your perspective of the virtual world is that we have to condense everything because of the lack of energy to go much beyond an hour. So we really appreciate you guys hanging in, because we thought this 15 minutes would be really valuable and wanted to share them with you. So thanks everyone. And again, may we be in person next year, and may we be, responding as we always do together to help shepherd the next new generation of folks who need our help, because we need them as much as they need us. So thank you so much.
Another year of HIAS Pennsylvania successes.